Hey guys, welcome to the She Knows Arsenal post-match show. We are live. Hey guys, welcome to the She Knows Arsenal post-match show. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @It'sJessino. On today's show, we're going to be talking about our game against Olympiacos. Obviously, we lost that game 1-0, but we were able to go through to the quarterfinals, which is great. We're also going to talk about the Europa League draw, where we drew Slavia Prague this morning. And we're also going to be talking about the West Ham game, how we're going to line up. Should we go full strength? Should we not? All that good stuff. And I have one of my favorite guests with me today. It's DJ Harry. Hey, Harry.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I love this awkward, hey, we weren't just talking backstage, hey, I just love that.
Start doing like a virtual handshake. Hey.
Pretty much. Hey. Next time we're just going to skip it and just be roll right in. But let's jump straight in. How did you feel about the lineup? I know for me, it was Ceballos, Elneny, Xhaka, midfield. I'm not sure if that really worked for us. It was a little awkward. What did you think about the lineup in the midfield and specifically?
Yeah, I feel like I always kind of understand Arteta's lineups, and with regards to that middle trio, I do understand it because Partey needs to a rest of some sort, or we need to manage him slightly better than we are. Martin Odegaard has played a lot of minutes, and ironically, when we look at the first leg, Ceballos came on, and when he played in the middle too, or as the two central midfielders, he really had a negative effect on the game. And then he grew into the game when almost he was able to abandon his defensive responsibility. And in that last 10 minutes of that game, he played quite a good role going forward. So I think Arteta's thinking was, if I play Ceballos further forward, he'll essentially do no damage and he'll be able to create. And also Elneny was he didn't deserve a start, but you could say that, he warranted a run out. So I think it was about just giving the guy some minutes. And ultimately, because we had a nice lead in the tie, I think he just thought, let's just go for a bit more of a balanced control in midfield and just try to keep possession. But as we saw, it didn't work. And the dynamic was just a little bit over the place. And whilst I'm a big fan of Granit Xhaka, I just think it shows how important it is to have the right profile of player next to him. And one change in that system messes up the whole cog, and everything suddenly after that doesn't work. So I understand the midfield three to a certain extent, but obviously he brought Partey and Odegaard on pretty quickly, so we could all see it wasn't working. Otherwise, it was a pretty strong lineup. Listen, at the end of the day, we rotated just about the right amount. And you look at Spurs, who rotated maybe one too many, and that's the reason why they're out. Not only because they're not very good, but also because in a few key positions, one too many rotations can mess it up. So yeah, that's what I think.
I think I definitely agree with that. But in terms of thinking about what was Arteta trying to do, he was obviously trying to rotate. Whether or not do I want to see that center of those midfield three together again? No
way.
I thought it was rank. It just didn't work. The first 20 minutes actually weren't bad. I thought Ceballos was picking up good positions, and he did create quite a few chances in those first couple minutes. And I think, Arteta was just trying to make sure that he had that same balance for the system that he had before with Odegaard, because prior to playing with Odegaard and Smith Rowe in that 10 position, we were playing with nobody, or Willian, and Willian wasn't available. So I don't know if that had something to do with it as well, but it didn't work. It really didn't. But in the grand scheme, we got through. There really wasn't it didn't jeopardize anything per se. It just didn't look good. And I think that, what you said, thinking about the early substitutions was the right move for us, because we had given up the goal and we were losing control. And I tweeted, there's no way that Elneny and Ceballos can control this midfield. I think that it ask more questions about whether or not these players should be here long term, because ultimately we need midfielders that, if we want to rotate Xhaka and Thomas Partey, they can hold their own. But I think, as we saw yesterday, even against an Olympiacos side that had no real chance of, progressing in this tie and don't have very good players, they couldn't control the midfield. It was a little damning, I think, on them. And before the game, I was thinking maybe Ceballos can make a good case for being a rotational option in that number 10 position. And it really didn't work out for him, so.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've seen a few times when we've been calling for some players to step in. So, when people discuss Xhaka, they use El Neni or Ceballos as a reason to say, oh, well, he can do the same job. But sometimes the simple things, are the hardest. And what Xhaka does is just keeps the ball ticking over and is a vital part to that system. Whereas when El Neni comes in, it's just not as progressive, it's not as quick. And when Ceballos comes in, it's sometimes overcomplicated and it's too slow when it doesn't need to be. And then he diddies on the ball a bit too long. So yeah, I agree. I've got a little bit of a soft spot for El Neni in terms of, I like his work ethic, I like his demeanor, and sometimes he's good to bring on 10 minutes to go when you're closing out a game or trying to protect the lead. But yeah, you're right. If we want to move up to that level, it's about improving your first team players, but also improving your squad players. And I don't think, for example, Granit Xhaka or Partey are worried about their central midfield spot. And they shouldn't necessarily be, but it would be good to have players to really push them. And respectfully for El Neni and Ceballos, I don't think either of those guys are those players, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm just. Do you think that Ceballos would play better with Thomas Partey? It's a partnership that we haven't really seen. Do you have any thoughts on why we haven't seen that combination?
Yeah, I just think Arteta likes someone who picks up the ball off the defence and plays it quick. One touch and a forward pass, or a sideways pass, or a backwards pass, if it may be. Whereas with Ceballos, it's often over-expressive. And I just don't think. I think the reason why he played number 10 yesterday was because I believe that Arteta doesn't trust him as much to play in that deeper role. And he wants him to almost, if he makes a mistake, further up the field. Unfortunately, yesterday we still got punished. And we speak about Xhaka's 8 goals, 8 errors leading to goals. I mean, Dani Ceballos is trying to catch him up, I think, because I think that's 3 or 4 in the past couple of Europa League games. So, no, not to say I'm not a fan of Ceballos, but I've never been over infused with it. I remember a couple of good games last year. We met with some really indifferent games, and I'd personally rather a 6 out of 10 every game than I would an 8 and then a couple of 5s, personally. So for me,
I think Arteta feels the same way. I think Arteta feels the exact same way. He's looking at it like, well, I know with Xhaka, I know what I'm going to get. With Ceballos, you can either get, a 10 or a 2. You never really know. Pepe is kind of similar in that way as well. You don't know if you're going to get ghost Pepe or world beater Pepe. So maybe Arteta is more concerned about getting consistent performances, even if the level is a little bit lower. The average is a little bit lower than maybe the highest that somebody else can give, which I can't really fault him for, if I'm honest, No,
not at all. And I think a lot of it comes with player positions as well. When you look at Ceballos, he's very frantic. He's almost everywhere, which isn't a bad thing. But Arteta wants so much more structure. And we've seen when we're flowing, in attack, if you look at the heat maps or the average player positions of our successful games, they're almost identical. It's Xhaka in the back 3. It's Partey and Ødegaard narrow. It's Kieran Tierney bombed on. It's Bellerin or Cedric slightly tucked inside. So he wants that repetition. And when Ceballos plays in the middle, he goes everywhere to get the ball and to make an impact. And maybe that's because he feels the pressure. Maybe because he's trying too hard to impress. But either way, like I said at the start, it's fine margins with us. And one little tweak in the system, we just don't have the same ability. If you look at our average positions of yesterday's performance, it was just completely different. Tierney didn't get as forward as much. I'm not sure if that was to do with managing his fitness, but he wasn't as progressive. Obviously, Dani Ceballos wasn't in that number 10 position as much as he should have been. So, yeah, unfortunately, without talking about Dani too much, I just feel like it's a good loan signing for continuity. Arteta probably thought it's easier to get someone in on a free who knows his tactics already, but I can't see us pushing for a move, beyond this season.
The Assembled asked, do I think that Arsenal have the players to rotate with? And I think that this game to me just showed that I don't think we really do, in terms of like high quality options off of the bench that keep the consistency up with the system that we're trying to play. That's something that obviously we're not going to be able to address in the latter ends of the season. I think we're going to see a lot of minutes on Xhaka, Partey, Odegaard. These players are going to be playing every single game from here on out, because these games are becoming, as well. And Tierney, things are just, we're in the business end of the season now, so we can't really have that kind of drop off that we had yesterday. And it's definitely something that I'm looking to in the summertime for us to address, because if El Neni and Ceballos can't do it, then we need to find players who can, because we can't be running these players' legs off. Let me see.
Yeah, totally. I don't know how many teams in the top 6 will only have one, left back per se, and we essentially have one natural left back. So we're really light in that area, and we're light in quality in key positions. So yeah, so the Assembled is a great question, but I don't think we have enough good players to rotate with. But like you say, it's the business end of the season now. I could have justified a start for Holding and Mari last night, but maybe Arteta just wants continuity, and in defence is probably the most important part. I think you'll see Cedric play the majority of the Premier League games, and Bellerin will step in the Europa League. But it's too risky, and I think we're too vulnerable and we're too nervous to rotate too much, as last night showed. If we rotate against West Ham, we'll lose convincingly. We will, and the same with Liverpool. So Arteta has to manage these games, really carefully, because we don't want our players to burn out. But I know everyone's saying put all the eggs in one basket, but if we lose to West Ham and Liverpool, they'll be hell again. So these players, Tierney and Xhaka and Partey, I hope they're fit for 14 games, 90 minutes consecutively, because we're going to need them all.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about the missed chances. The XG for this game was somewhere around 2.58. We should have had more than 0 goals, obviously. Aubameyang had a really good chance in the first half that he missed. Pepe had a chance as well, and I remember Odegaard having a pretty bad miss in the second half after he came on. Is this something we should be worried about? The missed chances are starting to really stack up, and I know most teams, they obviously they miss chances, but for us it seems like it's becoming an issue for me. In a different game, maybe it's because there's no pressure, but even in games with pressure, we're missing chances. How do you feel about, can we just chalk it up to it was a nothing game, and and West Ham will be firing on all cylinders, or is it something that this team really has to get over?
Well, what I'd say is, in the Premier League, I don't think you'll have as many clear-cut chances against decent opposition. So when those chances fall to Aubameyang, you have to score. When Pepe has the option to play it inside to Aubameyang for an open goal rather than trying to shoot, it's about that decision-making in those areas, which has to improve. I'd be worried if we weren't creating chances. And the same for the criticism of Aubameyang, which I've seen generally. I would be worried if he wasn't in the right positions. I know he's not running around like we perhaps want a captain to do, but last night he did get in the right positions. His first touches were decent. His finishing was off, but he was occupying the right spaces. So, and I think he's still got maybe 6 goals in the past 7 games, all appearances. I know they've come in with a hat-trick against Leeds and then a brace against Benfica and 1 against Burnley. So, there are blanks within that run of form, but when we go back to that horrible run of form, we weren't creating any chances whatsoever. Maybe 1 or 2 a game, and Lacazette didn't take it, and we lost to Burnley, Southampton, and whatnot. So it's one of those ones where I hope we don't read too much into it, because, like you say, the job was already done because of essentially good finishing. And hopefully in the next game, whether the chance falls to Aubameyang or Lacazette, we take them. But like I say, my main worry would be not creating chances, and the fact that we're getting to that end key chance is what keeps me slightly positive. But we'll have to wait and see, won't we? If we draw a blank against West Ham, then you're spot on with those questions. But we'll have to see.
I really wonder about it, because I'm just thinking to myself, like, not only just the chances, I just think good teams, regardless of the opposition and regardless of the position that they're in, they finish their chances and they control games. And I think that, it's more of, it's not something that I understand that we're growing and we're in a project and we're trying to work out the kinks, but this is something that has to be addressed sooner rather than later. I think good teams control games, regardless if the opposition is in it or not. They control it, and we didn't do that. We didn't control the game at the end of the North London Derby either. And good teams finish their dinner. They finish off the teams right away and just they don't even give them a chance. They don't even make it weird, like interesting at all. And I think that's the difference between us and like maybe teams like Man City, is that we need that level of ruthlessness. And I'm not seeing it in this team. Going to the latter ends of the season, we can't have these types of games where we just don't put them away, because it's not just about, about the game itself. It's about managing the squad as well. Like Martinelli probably could have came on a lot sooner if we're 2-0 up in that game and it's over, or we can rotate more players out. But because we don't take care of the business early, we don't have the chance to manage the team the way that I think Arteta wants to, so it's something that I know it over time, you get that type of mentality where you finish off teams and you control games. But I think going into the latter ends of the season, it's something that I do worry about. And Ian Bickerton says that, it's a better issue than not creating chances, meaning missing chances is better than not creating them at all. And I think that's very true, but this is our new issue. So we need to fix it sooner rather than later, in my opinion.
Yeah, when you think about the back end form of last year in the FA Cup run, that was all about being super clinical and super efficient, mainly because we had quite a defensive or counter-attacking setup. But when those chances fell to Aubameyang, he was in red hot form and he took his chances. And if he didn't, those games would have been different. So right now we're in a position where it's either missed chances, lapses of concentration / individual errors, which are holding us back. And when you say, good teams close out the games or good teams take those chances, at the minute, we are borderline a good team. And the reason why we're 10th is for those reasons. I do think we're better than 10th, but for those exact reasons, that's the reason why we're not climbing the table as much as we should have. So in terms of being worried about it for next season, I totally agree, because I don't think Aubameyang would have anticipated. I don't think Arteta, would have anticipated in the next summer, that he would have to potentially look for a new striker. I don't think that would have crossed his mind. I think he would have thought he's got Aubameyang scoring 20 goals, similar to Jamie Vardy has done, into his 31, 32, 33. But I don't know if Aubameyang will now be able to replicate that. I hope he can. And if he can't, then maybe in the summer, a really big call is made in terms of his future. And if you get an offer from overseas, whether it's China or America, maybe you say, okay, maybe it's time to focus on someone who can maybe get us goals. So it's something to be slightly concerned about, especially when we know we're still too vulnerable. I mean, I know Olympiacos are doing well, but at home, you should just be able to say, do you know what? Don't concede. Like, you're 3-1 up, just keep the ball. I know Olympiacos are a good team, and I know they've scored against us beforehand and whatnot, but you should be able to just close out of a game. And the same, like you said, against Spurs at home, 10 minutes ago, you should be able to keep the ball.
And one man up as well, It's just things that I think about because I'm seeing patterns and I don't really want to ignore them. Yo-Yo says that Arsenal don't need to be like City to win Europa. We just need to be better than Manchester United, who have also struggled this season to impose themselves on opposition. I hear what you're saying, but we're going to be playing Slavia Prague. This is a team that I think came back in the away leg in both of their last, ties, to come back and go through, so looking at Spurs and how they were 2 up just to get knocked out 3-0 away. Like, I think we do have to control games. And what if we do get up, which we tend to do, we'll be up 2-0 on Slavia Prague or whatever. On the next leg, we still have to take care of business. So I do think that we do need to tap into more of a City type mindset. We're going to control the ball. We're the better team. We should go through and we need to act like it. The last thing we want to do is be up in this tie and then turn around and bottle it because we didn't think we needed to have that type of mentality. It's something that they need to start adopting now. And it's also something that Arteta has spoken about in many an interview, that we need to finish off games. We need to finish our chances. We need to be smarter. Even Thierry Henry said just a couple of days ago that Arsenal need to believe in themselves and get that type of mentality. It's something that we do need to, take care of at some point. So let's look at some of these comments you guys have. Velvashwan says El Esiri can replace Aubameyang at Arsenal. Ha ha. C. Finnan says, now would you sell Laka or Abba or keep Laka as he has been playing better?
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because my love for Laka seems to go up and down, and now I'm looking at Laka and I'm like, oh man, I love this guy. He's running around. He seems to be taking on that responsibility as more of a captain. He's scoring important goals, albeit penalties. He's giving us that work rate and that endeavour. And then I'm thinking, we could definitely keep him for a few years and he might be able to score some goals. But it's a dangerous trap. We've seen many times when we give that big contract extension to a 29, 30-year-old, it doesn't always work out well. So it might be a case that he does stay and it's good to have him around. But it's a good question because at the minute it does feel like Lacazette's playing better. And I'm not sure who he's going to start against West Ham, which kind of says it all at the moment.
That really does. Yeah. And we'll definitely tackle that in the West Ham preview. Here's a good comment from AK Gunner 49. Thank you for your comment. He says, Prague is not straightforward and we are not good enough to underestimate any team. We have favorable semifinal route. United favorites to win the Europa League. Prefer to play them in a one-off game rather than two legs, which is, what we spoke about before we got on air. And I think this is a really true comment. I guess we'll just jump into kind of talking about the draw. Obviously, we all know that we drew Slavia Prague, and I think it is favorable in terms of we are the better team and we should, be able to get past them. My biggest anxiety was coming from not getting Manchester United too early. And as you've said, AK Gunner, that you didn't want to have to play them in two legs. I'd rather play them in a one-off as well. How are you feeling about our chances moving towards the end of this competition? And do you think that we need to prioritize it, throw all the eggs in that basket, or keep our eggs spread out in different baskets?
Well, with regards to Prague, I think it is a good draw, but AK's right. We can't be complacent. Juventus showed that against Porto. It's cup football. Anything is possible. Even if you've got a 2-0 victory away from home in the first leg, when you come back to your home ground, if that team take the first goal, they've got all of the impotence, and it's really hard. So I'm confident that we can progress in that competition. But unfortunately, with Arsenal, we're so unpredictable. It's hard to be really confident that we get to the final. If we do manage to come through Prague, then we've potentially got Villarreal and there's the Unai Emery story to be written. That will be a tough game. Spanish teams play with a lot of personality, a lot of good technical players who can hurt you. So we have to be on our best behaviour. And in terms of putting eggs in both baskets, I just don't think we're good enough to do that. I think even that last 10 minutes against Spurs, there was a continuation into the game last night. So when we have an off game, we're not able just to forget about it. And I just feel like if we do put our eggs in all the Europa League basket, we will suffer in the Premier League. And then we'll take that onto European football. And I just think we're too vulnerable for that at the moment. And whilst the Premier League games are coming thick and fast, after this West Ham and Liverpool game, the fixtures are pretty decent. So it might be a case of just playing your first team for 60 minutes and then taking off your key players if you're winning. But in the same respect, if you have Martinelli willing to step in and Lacazette willing to step in, then you might be able to get away with rotating. But in terms of central midfield and Xhaka and Partey, I just wouldn't change it. And in terms of the back four, I'd try to keep it almost the same as much as we can. I like Holding and I like Mari. I'm a big fan of Rob Holding. I think he's totally underrated. But at the minute, it's crunch time. And for me, I don't think we're good enough to put eggs in one basket. I think firmly separate the eggs into baskets and make sure each basket has a nice amount of eggs. That's what I would say.
You guys, there's about 48 of you guys watching the stream. Thank you guys for being here, but make sure you guys smash the likes and subscribe to the channel. A lot of good content coming your way in the next couple of weeks. So Lone Star Londoner says, no guarantees of Villarreal. It's Villarreal if we win. Zagreb proved their quality yesterday. They have lost just once in 17 European home games. Lone Star also says Slavia Prague have not lost a single game in 23 matches domestically this season. Fergie's son says, all your focus must be on Europa. Financially, you need to be in the Champions League to ensure proper summer transfer window. It's mandatory. You know, I think kind of where I stand on this whole what we should be doing, and I think if we start to prioritize, which is something that Unai Emery did towards the end of the season when we were going towards the European final, I think the team is not good enough, like you said, to flip-flop. We need to get a run of consistency. I think play your strongest team as much as possible. It's going to be difficult because we have certain players that have had injury troubles this season, so we have to be smart. But I think consistency is what this team really needs going into the latter ends of the season. We have a couple of games left in the season in the Premier League. You know, there may be a chance that other teams slip up. And last season, I felt like we missed a chance to just qualify for Europa League through the league because we bottled some of those games towards the end, and we really shouldn't have, you know, like Aston Villa, you know, we shouldn't have lost that game. I agree with you, Harry. I think we should, for the sake of the Europa League, focus on both, you know, so that we have the consistency. We can rotate certain players like Pepe for Saka is pretty decent, Odegaard and Smith Rowe. I think the drop-off really happens when we start talking about Kieran Tierney in those midfield positions. So we kind of need Thomas and Xhaka and Tierney to stay fit, because not only do they not have backup, but they're three of our most important players, you know, which is a little scary, you know, at this point. But I think we have a good chance of winning it. I was just telling Harry before we started that I'm afraid because I'm starting to get confident that we could actually win this, you know, and how crazy would it be, you know, if we beat Unai Emery in the semis and we go to the final against United? How do you think the internet would shut down, Harry?
God, I think I'll shut down. I think that'll be too much for me to take. The pressure riding on that game would just be huge, because it would almost accelerate our process, as it were. And if we do manage to win the Europa League, I think that changes quite a lot, especially in terms of the players we can attract and our transfer budget. If we don't make Champions League football next year, I think you'll see 2 signings come in, maybe a couple of loans. But if we manage to pull that out of the bag, I think we could see a really positive summer. So who knows what will happen? But yeah, the internet will definitely shut down, and I think that will be a really, really tense couple of days if we do make it through to the final. But you never know. Man United, you know, I know they're second in the league, but I don't think they're amazing. So they could struggle. Maybe not against Granada, but against Roma or Ajax, they could struggle. So, you know, we could be facing the likes of Mkhitaryan and Kolarov. And no, is Kolarov at Roma still, or is Kolarov at Inter Milan?
I think he's at Inter now.
Yeah. But anyway, so we could be facing Roma instead. Who knows? But either way, at least we're in it. And at least the players are showing that, regardless of the result last night, that this competition is really important, because you've seen, you know, a great turnaround against Benfica. You've seen a really good first leg against Olympiacos. So I think the players realise the importance of this competition. I don't know how well it sits with players like Aubameyang and Xhaka to be at Arsenal for this amount of time and not playing Champions League football. So I hope they're motivated to bring it home.
Do you think Arteta has a better team than Unai Emery did in the Europa League? Do you think that this team was... we should pull up the Europa League final lineup. I don't think it was very good, but I feel like Arteta has a better squad, you know, or he has a better team, you know. What do you think?
When the Arteta out, you know, heat was really, really hotting up. I heard this a lot, you know, from Emery, and Emery got to Europa League final with Lichtsteiner and Welbeck and Jenkinson and Mustafi. And you look at the amount of games some of those players played, it was hardly any. I would say that now we have a team with more individual quality, but I think the Emery team had a bit more balance, I'd say. But listen, now all the players are playing well and they're fit and available. You'd say Arteta has a stronger team, but I don't think it's as big as we think it is. I think whilst players like Monreal certainly isn't better than Tierney, and whilst Koscielny was coming towards the end, they're still massive players who have played in the Premier League for a long time. So I think Emery had a decent enough team. Who started right back that day? It was Maitland-Niles, right? Was it Maitland-Niles?
I think Maitland-Niles came on after. I'm looking for it. I don't see it. If you guys know, let us know, because I think I blocked that day out.
Yeah.
So I didn't ever think about it again.
Yeah. The only good thing to come out of that week, I think, was Liverpool beating Spurs. If Spurs won the Champions League and we lost the Europa League final in the same week, I probably wouldn't be here talking about Arsenal. I'd be hiding somewhere. Let's try and find the lineup. Oh, here we go.
You got it? Do you guys know who played in that Europa League final against Chelsea? Let us know. I need to compare this. I just think, I feel like the squad that he had, or the team that he had, is not as good as what we have now. But I also think the mentality is better now. So
yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that. Here we go. I'm not sure if you can see that.
Oh yeah, hold on. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so let me push this down. So in the Europa League final, we had Aubameyang, Lacazette, Ozil, Kolasinac, Xhaka, Torreira, Maitland-Niles, Monreal, Koscielny, Sokratis, and Petr Cech.
It's not great,
yeah,
is it, when you think about it?
First of all, that's diabolical for a European final. And I definitely think that we have a better team now. What do you guys think? Do you guys think that this team is better than like our typical starting lineup or our best lineup now? Let us know in the comment section. And Harry, tell them what you said about what could possibly happen if we were to win, and you tell them.
So if Liverpool and Arsenal both finish outside the top four, but Liverpool win the Champions League and we win the Europa League, then whoever finishes fourth in the Premier League will not get Champions League football. So Chelsea could finish fourth, West Ham could finish fourth, Spurs could finish fourth, but they wouldn't get Champions League football, which is potentially amazing. I think that happened in 2012. Is that right? When Chelsea beat Bayern Munich? Mm-hmm. I think they took Champions League football of Spurs. Yeah. Or maybe it was 2013. So that's something that potentially could happen. Who knows? But it would be funny if that was to happen to Chelsea or Spurs.
Hastings Gunnar says Arteta has the team playing a better system. And AK Gunnar says we have a better team and style of play. That's probably a lot of it, that we just play better football now. So even if we don't, maybe if the team is, you could take this player over this player, this player over this player, I think the mentality, besides the little clinical stuff and that kind of stuff, but the team belief, and because towards the end, they did not believe under Unai Emery, like going into that final, they were pretty much confidence was on the floor. I think this team has better confidence. The style of play is much better, and I think if this team played against that Chelsea team in that final, I think we would win, because I could not believe that we beat them twice in the league and then had the audacity to lose to them the way that we did in that final. Mentality was on the floor for sure, but obviously we have to get there first. And before we even get to Slavia Prague, we need to play against West Ham. So let's go ahead and do a West Ham preview. You guys make sure you smash the likes and share this with friends, subscribe to the channel. There's about 53 of you guys watching. Thank you so much. And let's go ahead and talk about West Ham. So is West Ham good, or is everybody else just bad? What are your thoughts, Harry?
No, West Ham are a good, efficient team. They play simple football. They have the right personnel in every position. When they take someone like Fornals out and they bring in Bowen, he gives them the same energy. In Lingard, they've got a player who's confident. Souček's obviously so dangerous in the air. They don't overplay. They're direct. So yeah, I mean, they're definitely good at what they do. We need to be on it. Remember, they're going to have 7 days rest. So yeah, we need to be really, really aware. But respect to West Ham for being consistent. I know people have used David Moyes as an example as to why we should be doing better. But I think it's just a good example of when you have the players to fit your system, you can be quite efficient. And that's what they're doing. Even someone like signing Craig Dawson, has been a really good signing for them. An old experienced centre-half, chipped in with a few goals. Cresswell at left-back's been doing really well for them.
Jesse Lingard too.
Yeah, Kufau's a really, really simple right-back. Very, very basic. He's almost a bit like Zabaleta in the way he plays, but he's super, super strong.
That's a good comparison.
Quick. Yeah, quite quick in short distances. Mikel Antonio is just a havoc. My West Ham friend said he's probably the worst football I've ever seen, but he's really, really effective. So it's going to be a tough game, a really tough game on the weekend. I'll take a point, and that's not being negative, but I would.
I have to say that, really for me, and looking at West Ham is I'm really glad that we played them early in the season and got that win, because I think if we had played them a couple weeks after that, we would have lost.
We didn't deserve to win that game, I don't think.
We didn't. We did not play well. We were really sloppy on the ball. I think a late Eddie, goal right at the end of the game. Really, we didn't deserve to win, but they've become a better team since then. Obviously, the table shows that, and their form shows that. And we're a better team, but we've struggled a lot. We've already talked about that, individual errors, consistency, things like that. But I think we're pretty evenly matched in terms of being able to hurt each other. I anticipate them sitting. I've had other people tell me that they feel like West Ham will come out and play, but I think if Moyes is smart, they'll sit in and play on the counter. If they try to play us, I think we're much better when teams try to play us than when they sit in the low block. But that's just how I kind of see it. And I think the scariest thing about West Ham is set pieces. As good as we become on set pieces defending them, we've gotten light years better. Souček, Antonio, Dawson, that's not something that I really want. Agbana, if he plays, Diop, if he plays, it's just, it's not looking great, we're going to have to be physical. So I think this is going to be interesting, but I do think it's evenly matched. How would you, maybe if you're Arteta, how do you anticipate him going into this, knowing that we have, big European matches coming up in the future, but we have maybe a 2-week break? Do you go full strength? Do you play the more, pick the lock team or the counter-attacking side? How do you think that he's going to approach this?
I think we go full strength. I think there might be a case to play Holding, maybe instead of David Luiz. I thought David Luiz looked a little bit tired yesterday. I don't think he had a bad game, but he didn't seem on it. So I would be tempted to play Holding simply to cope with Antonio a little bit more. I know Antonio's a powerhouse, but I think you need to be physical with him. You need to be aggressive with him. And Holding's got that in his locker. He's got that Britishness about him. So maybe I would consider playing Holding. Otherwise, I'd pretty much go full strength. I think Cedric comes in for Bellerin. And then maybe we'll see Willian on the left instead of Emil Smith-Rowe. I have a feeling, just to rest Emil Smith-Rowe a little bit. But that's what I would do if I was Arteta. I would just approach the game with the same energy and the same authority as we did against Spurs. I believe we beat Spurs because in the first 5 minutes we dominated possession and we really showed them that we're on it. And we passed with such purpose. So I think if we can straight away get hold of the ball against West Ham and show the initiative, I think you're right. I think that will see them sit back. I think that they might come at us if they notice that we're a little bit weak or a little bit slow or tentative on the ball. But if in the first couple of minutes we dictate the game, show our authority, I think they'll sit back and then they'll hope for the counter. And whilst West Ham have been great this season, they're not a chance that's necessarily going to create, an abundance of chances or fullbacks constantly overlapping. They'll sit in their shape and they'll look to hit it long when they can. And like you said, we have to be aware of Souček. Souček is a bit like the Rory Delap throw-in at Stoke. Doesn't matter how well you defend, if that ball's on the money, it's a goal. And Creswell whips in an absolutely fantastic corner, and Souček is a beast in the air. So even if you do sit up the right way, sometimes if the cross is perfect and the header's perfect, there's nothing you can do about it. So we just have to be aware and don't give away stupid free kicks, right? No silly free kicks in and around the box, because and do you know what? We seem to do that quite a lot. I think we gave away a silly one last night, Aubameyang, and it was almost in the same position that they scored against us last year. So we just have to be wary of free kicks and silly fouls.
I agree. So let's go ahead and build our lineup then. We'll just make a visual aid here of what we want to see. So let me share my screen. It's going to look a little funky for a second. Can you see it, Harry?
I can't, no.
No? Okay, wait, hold on. This is not working. Now can you see it?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and build our lineup. Runnerson in goal? No, just kidding. That would be a nightmare. I think we're going to go with Leno, even though personally I thought maybe we could have played Ryan yesterday just to give Leno a mental and physical break, but I think we'll see Leno in there. Let's go with right back. So you think it's going to be Cedric, but do you think that we could see maybe a Chambers coming in for the height aspect of it? Kind of like what we did against Burnley? Or do you think Cedric is nailed on for this in this game?
Do you know what? That's a good shout, to be honest. I didn't think of that. You've thrown a curveball there. I would go Cedric personally. I would like Cedric not to overlap as much. I think he needs to be a little bit similar to Bellerin. Not to say that Bellerin is the benchmark, but just in terms of play a little bit more inverted. I don't think we're necessarily a crossing team. When Tierney puts in crosses, they're almost like from a through ball, and they're like drilled across the ground, whereas Cedric seems to whip balls in. I don't think we have that aerial threat. But it's a good point about Chambers, actually. A really good point.
If we anticipate playing holding, that might be a problem. I don't think Chambers and Holding next to each other. Yeah. So let's go with Cedric.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Cedric for the majority of the season. I like Bellerin. I've got a lot of time for him, but I get the feeling that it's the time to fade him out, and I think we'll see less of him. I might be wrong.
Good point. So you also said, and I agree with you, I think Rob Holding needs to come in this game. One, because David Luiz looked tired, and also because we need aerial presence on set pieces and things of that nature. And he's been out for a while, but I think they showed like a video of him practicing like he's fine. And, so yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah, no, I agree. And also, if there is an injury to a centre half, we want these guys to have had some minutes in them recently. And so Rob Holding and Murray just sitting on the bench, not getting any competitive minutes. I don't think that's a good idea, especially when we've got 4 good centre halves. But the partnership for Rob Holding, I would stay with Gabriel personally. I don't know what you think.
I think because Gabriel and Holding to me is the weakest partnership. So I'm like, every time that they play together, I'm like, something's not right about this. But maybe Pablo Mari comes in and gives Gabriel a rest. I just think that he's kind of picked his partners. He'll do Marie and David Luiz, Holding and Marie, or, David and Gabriel. But we can't put Gabriel in there too.
No, it's a good point, actually. I think obviously Holding and Marie do play well together. I still feel like that's quite a slow partnership. I know there was that one game when Mari showed quite a lot of good pace against, I think it was Vardy. I don't know. It's a really tough one. Something tells me that Arteta's going to be trying try to be as consistent as possible because he hasn't changed that centre back pairing for quite a few games now. But
so keep one constant then in Gabriel, or put Marie. I think it's going to be Marie. Honestly,
it's your show.
You don't have a face. That's so sad. Okay. So, and I think we all kind of know it's going to be Tierney. I don't know if they were managing his minutes or managing his fitness yesterday, but I couldn't tell if he was just running slow on purpose or he just looked tired, but he just needs to get to international break, but at the same time, is Scotland not playing games? Last time they ran him into the ground.
Yeah, they did. I think yesterday's passing stats in terms of our passing to the left-hand side was about 12% less than what it was against Spurs. So we certainly weren't, directing our play towards the left as much, which is probably a case of him managing his fitness. But that's the way it goes. I mean, let's be real. Kolasinac was really bad for us. So it's a case of just either, burning Tierney out or making mistakes with Kolasinac. So I think one left back is the way forward when you don't have a good second one.
True. You guys in the comment section, let us know if you agree with this back line of Leno, Cedric, Holding, Marie, and Tierney. Let us know if you agree or disagree. So I think we kind of know who this. I would imagine that based on who got snatched out, who got hooked against Olympiacos, that this is going to be the old faithful of Xhaka and Thomas Partey. Do you agree?
I do agree, yeah. I think it's a big game for Partey tomorrow. He was a little bit complacent when he came on yesterday, a few dodgy touches and passes. So it's a big game for him to dominate that midfield tomorrow. I feel like there's still more to see from Partey. I don't feel like he's near 100% match fitness. So
I think he's showing signs of frustration with his own inability to be fit enough to play these games. I personally think he had a good game in the North London derby, but I think it was kind of tainted by those last 15 minutes. But when I rewatched the game, he was nearly perfect until the second half and towards the end of the game. So I think we're just sensing a little bit of frustration. I think it's also difficult to get up to the intensity of the Premier League from a league that's a lot more technical and not built on power and pace. He was pretty much like physically dominating everybody in La Liga to going to, a more competitive in terms of physicality league in the Premier League. So, and not being physically fit also, hurts his ability to be able to dominate. So I think we're just seeing a little bit of frustration. I do think that we'll see the best of him probably next season. I'm not really that worried about it. But that being said, he needs to make a difference the rest of the season, and he needs to be fit. So this is where it gets interesting. What do you think about the cam position? Do you think Odegaard comes back in?
Yeah, I do. I think Odegaard comes back in for sure. I have a feeling that Arteta really just prefers him over Emil Smith-Rowe in that position. I think he prefers his technical approach, and he's a bit more of a passer. Emil Smith-Rowe is a bit more of a dribbler, a bit more of a explosive number 10. So I think Odegaard comes in. I must say I was really impressed with Odegaard when he came on yesterday. He seemed to really understand that we're in a delicate position, so he showed his authority. And it seems that he's slowly growing into his role now. So yeah, another big game for Odegaard, especially against West Ham, and Declan Rice and Souček. They're going to be tight on you. They're going to be physical. So tomorrow he'll see a real Premier League game. So he has to be ready for it.
Yeah, and if they're sitting back, I just think I prefer Odegaard. I just have this feeling that they're going to be smart enough to sit, not necessarily in like a super low block, but in some sort of, really compact shape that's going to make it difficult for us to pass through. We're not going to have a lot of space in behind. So I think having Odegaard in there is going to help us out with that.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, right mid. I personally think that, I would play Saka if he was fit, but I don't think he is. I don't think he's going to be ready, and I'd rather not risk him. So as much as I think that this may not be the perfect game for Pepe, I think he's going to have to play just because Saka's not 100%. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it's worth risking Saka. And if memory serves me correct, I believe Pepe's had quite a good few games against Cresswell, and he's giving Cresswell a tough time. And whilst I think Cresswell's having a good season, he's not the most mobile, and maybe Pepe's trickery will see him come out on top. So yeah, I would go Pepe as well. Whilst I'm not saying we shouldn't rotate too much, I believe we need to get Pepe up to speed as well and scoring some goals, getting his confidence up there, and tomorrow will be a good opportunity for him to do that.
Yeah, he didn't have a great game against Olympiacos, but
No,
that being said, I still think that he carries a threat even when he's not playing that well, which shows you kind of like what kind of talent he has. He had a couple chances to score, so I would like to keep him, in the lineup too, especially because we don't know what's going on with Saka. I think you already kind of touched on this, that you think Willian will play, and I kind of agree with you there. I think Willian will play against West Ham, in this left mid position. As much as we want to see Martinelli, and I know that it was nice to see him against Olympiacos, I don't think he'll be starting this game. Are you okay with putting Willian there?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's hard to call because I'm not sure if he will go with Emil Smith-Rowe. I believe Willian had a small niggle, so I think he came back in training yesterday or today. But in the same respect, we have to be wary of Emil Smith-Rowe's fitness. And like you say about Martinelli, I still think there's a process behind easing him in. So yeah, Willian left wing is a sensible shout.
Yeah. Do you guys agree with? I know there's probably going to be some why Willian, but do you agree with that he will probably play, or do you think Emil Smith-Rowe will continue to play in that spot against West Ham? Let us know in the chat box. So I think this is where it gets. I mean, as much as I feel like it'll be Aubameyang, I think there's a case for Lacazette to come into this game because, I was not impressed with Aubameyang yesterday. I think that was his opportunity to really put the being late for the North London Derby behind him, and I think he just kind of opened up more conversation about what we're doing with this striker. Now people are asking questions about whether we should sell him in the summer or if we need another striker. And I just think once you give somebody a big contract, we shouldn't be having these conversations. But, I think it's a little bit harsh on him because he's still been in good form in the last maybe 12, 13 games. But it's games like yesterday where I will really question him mentally, like his mentality. And I think going into the latter ends of this season, he needs to be on point. He needs to be clinical. So I don't know. What are you thinking for striker? Do you think Lacazette could play? Maybe against two physical center backs. They're pretty physical. Yeah. Aubameyang's not good against physical center backs. But
it's really tough. It's really tough, isn't it? Because I don't want us to get confused over Aubameyang's mentality and not being clinical. I think if he's clinical yesterday, he gets a hat trick comfortably. And I don't think he misses those chances because of his mentality. I think the second chance, or when he had the one-on-one, when Ødegaard slipped him through and he ran through and tried to chip it with his left foot. I know it's hard to imagine, but if Ødegaard plays that ball to Lacazette probably takes a touch sideways, turns around and waits for someone to run off him. And I know it's hard to imagine that, but that's what Aubameyang gives you over Lacazette, is just that ability to get in behind and break with pace. But like you say, if West Ham do sit deep, then it's almost a waste. But then in the same respect, when West Ham do go forward, then you have someone on the counter-attack. I would, regardless of that, I would play Lacazette tomorrow. I know I've given Aubameyang the benefit of the doubt. I would start Lacazette tomorrow. And you know what? It's nothing to do with if Aubameyang scored a hat-trick yesterday, then of course I'd say Aubameyang. But it's not really to do with the missed chances, and it's not about the captaincy or his mentality. I just think that Lacazette deserves to start, ultimately. I think he led the line well against Spurs, and I know he didn't play last night, but I don't believe he should be dropped. I think, I just think he's done enough to warrant himself a start, especially considering this opposition as well. I think that's important to remember. If we're playing a lesser team, I'd say Aubameyang, but because it's West Ham and at times it might be a tough game, I think it's good to have an outlet or someone you can hit up top and play off. So yeah, but if I was to pick the team, because I always pick these teams kind of what I think Arteta will do, but also what I want. I know we haven't seen much of it, but I would start Aubameyang and Lacazette tomorrow personally, because I think we'll have enough of the ball to make inroads. I think that we'll see Tierney potentially dominate the left, and I believe that having Aubameyang on the pitch would prove beneficial. But yeah, I think he'll go Lacazette up top.
What do you guys think in the chat box? Would you choose Lacazette or Aubameyang? It's such a hard decision because it's not like Lacazette was really clinical against Spurs, but his energy was good. He did a lot of good hold-up play. His build-up was okay, and he finished, the penalty, but when you look at Aubameyang is our main goal scorer. And I think if you get one chance against West Ham, who would you rather that chance fall to the feet of? And as much as I'm upset at Aubameyang and I'm like, oh, you weren't great, I think I prefer the chance to fall to Aubameyang if we only had one. And that's kind of just where I sit with that. But you guys, let us know if you agree with the lineup altogether. We have Leno, Cedric, Holding, Marie and Tierney, Thomas, Xhaka, Odegaard, Pepe, Willian, and Lacazette. Agree.
Do you want to put Aubameyang in? Is that who you would start?
Yeah, kind of.
put him in. Put Aubameyang in.
Kind of. Yeah. If we only get one chance, I think it needs to fall to Aubameyang. But yeah, let us know in the chat box. I'm gonna stop sharing this now. Come back to
It's such a tough one, isn't it? Because you've got a captain there, who you want to back and you want to support. And I'm sure Arteta's wary of not damaging his confidence. And of course, if he drops Aubameyang, there's even more noise and more speculation about his position as captain, blah, blah, blah. So it's a real tough call. It's a real tough call.
Okay. Sean says Lacazette. C. Finnan says, I would like Martinelli on the left, but yeah, this team is most likely to be picked. You guys, the Martinelli thing, I just think it's going to be his season next season. That's really what I believe. The real captain says Lacazette is a smarter player than Aubameyang, but much better link-up play knowledge of movement, etc. Yeah, I think, what I would really just love, like a Lacazette Aubameyang fusion. If both of them were like one striker, I think he'd be the perfect striker. But obviously we have two. Yo-Yo says the issue since he arrived has always been that Aubameyang misfires. Other players failed to spare the team's blushes. Pepe and Laka need to be trusted more by Arteta. Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Lone Star says Eddie scored the winner in the last minute against West Ham earlier this season. So you would start Eddie or what? What, Lone Star? What are you trying to say there? Sean says Lacazette for his hold-up play. It's so difficult. Why can't it just be one of them? Just why can't they both be good, at the same time? And it's just, who cares who plays? I just think they both offer such different things.
Have you noticed that when Aubameyang does play, we don't play to feet, or we don't play to him with his back to the strikers? So I understand what people say about Lacazette has better hold-up play, but I think that's because that's the way we play. Lacazette will play with his back to defenders, whereas when Odegaard's got the ball, Aubameyang will spin off already. So that pass isn't even on. The pass is down the side of the centre-back. So I think sometimes it's just about the approach you take. I agree that Lacazette's hold-up play is superior, but when we see Aubameyang on, there isn't, balls whacked to feet, or centre-backs aren't trying to pick him out against a centre-half. So, but yeah, it's such a tough one. It's such a shame we can't play 4-4-2 anymore. No one seems to play 4-4-2.
I know.
Got two good strikers there, but that formation seems to be dead.
Yeah. Yemi says that he agrees with you, Laka Abba. So we have that option, whatever West Ham decides to do. I think that it's so difficult because I wish they could play together, like you said, but we did try to play that before, where Lacazette played through the middle and Aubameyang played off the left, and I couldn't stand that because I just felt like we were leaving like all the build up, and the number 10 was just like not there. We also didn't really play with the 10 when we played that way too. maybe that's a reason why it didn't work, but I think he'll choose, and I think he'll choose Aubameyang, but I wouldn't be mad if I saw Lacazette, because I think Lacazette has been pretty good, this season. C. Finnan says Laka for sure. We need the hold up play. The real captain says I prefer Lacazette in the number 9 position. Lone Star says Aubameyang, so you don't choose Eddie. So okay, I'm good. I'm happy about that. Let's see. Philosonax says we'll see Aubameyang maybe together with Laka, but I think he's going to play.
Playing both of them would almost be the cop-out, wouldn't it, from Arteta? That would be the decision that doesn't upset anyone in particular, to keep them both happy. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision, and that's why Arteta is on the big bucks.
Yeah, I would have been sacked by now. If I was Arsenal's manager, you guys would have sacked me. I would have been done, because you guys wouldn't like anything that I did.
Jessica out would have been trending.
Jessica out, exactly, right away. C says, yep, with the fouls that Lacazette wins. I do like that about the way that he plays as well. Renee, my mom, says Aubameyang left, Lacazette center with no William. I don't like Aubameyang off of the left and Lacazette through the center, but that would be a way to kind of appease everybody. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? So you
Mum's always right, Jess. Mum's always right, remember. So
this is true. Mom's always right. So maybe that's what we should go with. But you guys, let's do a little bit of questions. We have a couple more minutes, so I'd like to get some questions in. If you have questions, just make them obvious so I don't miss them. And we'll try to do as many as we can before we go. Let's see. Aslan says, I'd take Arteta having selection headaches over injury headaches. That's a really good point.
One thing we can't blame the past 10 games is injuries. We've actually been really, really lucky recently. Everyone's been fit.
Whew, let me knock on wood. That's been good. And I think, what's so funny is that it's not funny. I don't want to say it's funny because I don't want people to especially because I think Velvashawan, if you're still here, you won't like this. Yeah, I see you're still in here. You guys took our physio and now kind of look where you guys are. And we got Bruno Maserati or Maserati or whatever, and now we're looking good. So I think I would love to get behind the scenes look at what he's been doing with the team this season, because I don't think it's luck that we have less injuries. I really think that it has something to do with him, because ever since he came in, we've looked so good with the rotating of players and keeping players fit. And I know that sometimes that may look like some players not playing or, but I think it's for the betterment of the squad long term, so yeah, I'm happy about that. Aslan says Jessica out brigade. I would have been out. I would have been out of the job, kicked out quick. You guys would not like me as the manager. I'd be making crazy decisions. Hastings asked Jess and DJ Harry, do you think we could play 4-1-4-1 at some point next season? Pretty much the way Bielsa and Leeds plays, they play 4-1-4-1, just basically with one CDM. Calvin Phillips plays that position for them. So, I mean, how do you feel about it? Do you think we could get to the point with playing just one CDM and more offensive,
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on player personnel, doesn't it? I think long term, I felt that Arteta wanted to build more of a 4-3-3 with almost a flat midfield 3, similar to what City do. They don't really play with a number 10 as such. But we could see that, but then we would really need a mobile CDM. Phillips is pretty mobile, and whilst I like Granit Xhaka, he isn't that guy. I think it will depend on the signing of Ødegaard, or if it's Aouar, or if it's Basuma. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a slight tweak next year. I think Arteta's just trying to work with what he's got in terms of personnel.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think the question is more about will we get to the one CDM kind of, because that allows us to be more offensive, but the risk has to match the reward. And I think until we're more clinical and we can dominate possession a lot better, we'll see 2 CDMs to protect the back line because we're not good enough yet. But yeah, it really just depends. And I think we'll know kind of based on the type of midfielder that we potentially bring in, whether that's Odegaard or somebody else, where we're kind of moving towards. I was talking to somebody about this, that I think eventually we could see, you know, maybe even Thomas, not as really a CDM, but just somebody just sitting in the midfield, and seeing, you know, even Odegaard on one side and Emile Smith-Rowe on the other as 2 attacking 8s, you know, with Saka and Pepe on either side, or maybe Saka on the right and somebody else on the left. That's kind of where I think as this team matures, that's where we'll end up going. But that's just a really big guess. I could be just making it up, and we could be 4-2-3-1 for the rest of Arteta's tenure. So who really knows, you know? Sean says, or asks, should we buy Odegaard at the end of the season? You know, I'm seeing, could it be Aouar? Could it be Buendia? Now that I've seen Odegaard, I think that's the player that we should and we will go for, and we'll make permanent. We have to make him permanent. There's no loan on the table. Real Madrid has to generate funds to, you know, improve their squad. So I'm down for it. Are you, Harry?
Yeah, I really like him, and I think we can't underestimate the importance of continuity and having a player who's already played at the club and knows Arteta's tactics. It just makes that transition so much easier. So if we can try to secure Odegaard, whether it's early, whether it's a year obligation to buy, a loan, whatever it is, I'd be super keen to make that deal happen. I think he's a really good player, and I think we're literally are only seeing half of what he can do. I think we'll just get better as time goes on.
I agree. Thomas Andreas says, or asks, any concerns with Saka going to England with the hamstring issue? Still a question. Personally, I'm not that worried about it because I think if he's too injured to go, he won't. And I don't foresee him playing all 3 games, all 90 minutes, with the players that they have. And they're obviously going to want to see some of the other players play. I don't really see it, but I can understand why we would be concerned, because he's not only one of our best players, but you could tell that he ran out of gas. You know, this injury was kind of in the post for a while. You know, Harry, how do you feel about it? Are you worried about him going on England duty, or you think it's...
I think England are quite fortunate to have a lot of forward options, so we should be okay in terms of the amount of minutes he plays. But it's something for Southgate to be wary of, and it's hard for international managers. You always think they're a little bit selfish because in this respect, he's seen Saka play. He knows what he can do. So you wouldn't think that he needs to play that many minutes. But I don't think Saka starts for England, does he? I'm pretty sure he doesn't. So I don't know. It's a tough one. But if I was Arteta, I would just milk it and just say Saka's injured, don't take him, and just protect him, because, like you say, the burnout's going to be there, and these guys have got 2 international tournaments over the next 2 years, right? So we have to be really mindful of protecting your own players. So yeah, I would just keep him here if we can. Just say he's injured. Just say his hamstring's really bad, and just say sorry. Say he's got a cold. Say he's hurt his toe. Say anything. Just leave him. Leave him alone for this until the rest of the season, I would say.
The only thing that really just, you know, I think about, how many chances is he going to get to prove himself as a forward for England? You know, this is a really good chance for him to get in there when Sancho's not there and when Grealish is not there. You know, so I'm not his manager or whatever, but I just think he deserves it. You know.
Yeah, but he's so young though, isn't he? He's got
true.
Potentially another 5 international tournaments to play, you know, in his career. And England are blessed with Rashford and Sterling and Sancho and Jack Grealish, who plays wide. So if I was Southgate, I would just be quite sensible about it. And if he's in the red zone as it was, then just, you know, leave him at home and obviously take him to the tournament, but don't overplay him now. I get that an international manager's going to want to try to get some continuity, but in the same respect, he's made quite a few random call-ups this squad, so he's obviously still undecided.
Aslan asks, Harry, how many Xhaka posters do you have on your wall?
So I've got 1, 2. I've got 4 on my wall, and then I've got a Xhaka rug, a Xhaka cup, a Xhaka robe, and a Granit Xhaka pencil case. I'm a big fan of Granit Xhaka, but I don't have any Granit Xhaka posters.
I love it. I love it. Okay, I saw a question from Dev. What players do we think will be gone in the summer, and what transfers do you see coming in? It's such a difficult question. You guys let me know in the chat box if you're interested in seeing a more in-depth, like an entire podcast just specifically based on the summer and summer transfers. International break is coming, so I want to make sure that I have a lot of content coming out. And if that's something that you're interested in seeing, I will create just a podcast based on that. But just for the sake of answering this question, I think it really depends on where we finish at the end of the season. I think we're going to see a team that looks fairly similar to the one we have now next season. I think because of the financial situation, it's just so difficult to get rid of players and turn over the team as quickly as we probably like to see. So for me, I really only see maybe Lacazette, maybe Eddie and Bellerin leaving this summer, maybe Chambers. But for me, those are the only players that I really see leaving, besides maybe some of the ones that are on loan. And I see Odegaard coming in and a right back, and then depending on what happens with Ceballos and Elneny, Elneny may stay, Ceballos may go, and we may look for some sort of, smart loan or something, somebody maybe of a better profile or a more suitable profile to what we need in the midfield. But I'll just drop it to you, Harry. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really tough. I think we need at least 3 or 4 in terms of, we need a backup left back. We need either a backup right back to Cedric potentially, or an elite right back to replace Bellerin and have Cedric as backup. We need a top level centre mid. We need a top level number 10, and we need potentially a striker. I think, for what it's worth, I think we will make 3 to 5 signings. I think the quality will just depend on where we finish. So you might see a backup left back come in, like Ryan Bertrand on a free transfer or a cheap deal. Or if we make Champions League football, you might see, a bit more of a younger, brighter right back. So I think this season it's all about being clever, and it also depends on the development of the players out on loan. So we speak about potentially, selling Elneny. Elneny's a sort of player to perhaps attract a decent fee from a Turkish club. And then maybe if Joe Willock and Maitland-Niles show enough on loan and get a bit more better at ball responsibility and just being a mature central midfielder, they could then become your 3rd or 4th choice central midfielder. So I think there'll be a lot of weeding and deeding, but I think you can pretty much guarantee that Bellerin, Nketiah, and Chambers will be sold. But there's a lot of business to do, and it just depends on how quickly we want to progress. If our owners are ambitious, and which it shows in the past few windows that they are, then I think Arteta will say, I need 3 to 5 players and make it happen for me. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So this is a big one. C. Finnan asked, well, the question is, everyone is talking about Matteo Guendouzi at the moment. Would we have him back? What do you think, Harry?
So I'd have Matteo Guendouzi, the footballer, back, but I wouldn't have the person back. So in terms of his quality, I think we could do with someone like him in terms of the way he carries the ball, his bravery, even to a certain extent, his emotion in the game. He seems to understand when you play Spurs, you have to play a certain way. But listen, I don't think we have any time for people that disrespect fellow professionals and the club and the morals of what it is to be an Arsenal player. And that's not us thinking we're better than we are. But if that's the only thing we've got left at the moment is protecting the club's values whilst we're in that transition. And if you have a player that upsets that, and without almost, being a little bit disrespectful to Guendouzi, the rumours coming out, from Germany, they're not positive ones. And usually there's some truth in that. So in all honesty, I think you're going to have to sell him. Unless you can extend his contract, because obviously he's only got 1 year left, right? So what you get for him, I don't know. Maybe extend his contract, let him go out on loan again, try to get his value up, protect your investment, and then sell him. But I just don't see him having a future back at Arsenal under Arteta.
I think it's important to remember that Arteta he's spoken a lot about egos, the team, the culture, and the mindset moving forward for the players that will be a part of this project. And I think based on the fact that he chose to keep El Neni, and Xhaka instead of Guendouzi and Torreira speaks volumes about what he thinks about the players. We can go back and forth about the quality, but I think the mindset is what Arteta's really, really looking at when it comes to these players. I think that relationship is broken, but beyond repair. I don't think there's a chance for Guendouzi to come back to Arsenal. But I think what's unfortunate is that it looks like the amount of suitors that would have been there maybe a year ago are no longer there. And because of the pandemic, whatever we get for him is not what we probably anticipated getting for somebody that has enough, appearances for Arsenal where we should be able to get over 25. I'd be shocked if we got 25 at this point because of the pandemic and his perceived persona or ego or attitude, whatever you want to call it. When his last interview came out, he spoke about having this bad boy persona and how he really wasn't a bad boy or a troublemaker. It was just about his passion and how badly he wants to make it. And I think that really speaks volumes about his inability to be accountable and see himself from a real lens. If everybody is saying that you're dead, it's time to lie down, you have to take that into consideration. 4 coaches have said that you have a poor attitude, so you probably do. And it's not just about, you can want it really bad without being an ass, so it's unfortunate, but I just don't see him coming back to Arsenal at this point. I would just like us to be able to make a little bit of money off of it. We bought him for 8, about 8 million or something like that. So anything over that I think is positive. But at one point he was being quoted for 40, so that's a pretty big hit.
It's such a shame. And I wouldn't say it's a mismanagement of the player, but in some respects it feels like a mismanagement of the asset. And maybe 2-3 years ago, I was certainly so impressed with Guendouzi when he came over, because I just thought he showed huge amounts of courage to get on the ball in such a complex position in central midfield. And ultimately 2-3 years ago, you would have said he'd be worth, God, this kid's 40-50 million pound player. He's amazing. His ceiling so high, and it just shows you, a manager that you fall out with, and then suddenly you're not wanted anymore, and you're not as good as you think you are. So it can change so quickly. But it's a shame. But hey, life goes on, and it is what it is in that respect.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you guys, we're going to go ahead and leave it there. Harry, thank you so much for doing the show with me. You were awesome as usual. Let everybody know where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah, no worries, Jess. Thanks for having me on. Just give me a follow on Twitter @it's DJ Harry for some Arsenal commentary during games. Yeah, give me a shout, and we can always interact about our beloved football club.
You guys, before you leave, make sure that you smash the like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with a friend if you feel so inclined. Again, I said that there's going to be a lot of content coming up, so you want to make sure that you have the subscribe on and get all your notifications. And I'll leave it to you guys in the comment section to let me know if you would bring Guendouzi back. And if you have any ideas for content for the international break, let me know in the comment section before you leave. So that's it, you guys. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Kevin Campbell will be on the show on Monday, so make sure you don't miss out on that. See you guys next time. Bye.